I'll say hello by reciting 6 lines of poetry if I can remember them, and it's kind of set the tone for a feeling of recollection in quiet moments of going back almost a century now, in the beginning of East York, and maybe more especially East York Collegiate. And yes, I get out of my scene, the guy says in the movie. Anyway, and these 6 lines, 5 of them by William Wordsworth and 1 by me. And they go something like this, if I can recall them. Oft when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills, and dances through the football drills. You know, when you think back, what had the greatest impact on the community of East York in that 100 years was the high school. It changed the life of East York. I don't say we were unique in that in Canada, but it would have been a different community without that. And kids made advancements that the older kids in my lifetime could only dream of, you know. And then this, with Hager, Hall, Miller, with their special contribution and attachment, that made it all sweeter.
Could I start the evening by giving you my impressions of what I think an East York kid is really like? He came into being around Coxwell and Cosburn Avenues about 1927. He didn't think about it then, but he's been gaining stature ever since. He's a veteran of the armed forces, or his dad is. He's attended school. He's skipped classes. He's visited the principal's office and served detention.
Oh, yeah.
He's been on the Indian list. But he's proud of his school and his teachers.
It started in April 1968 when a few jocks, all boys in it at the beginning, a few jocks decided they wanted to take the old coaches out to dinner.
This is truly going to be a memorable night for these 3 men. We speak of Batman and Robin these days as a dynamic duo. I sort of think of these 3 men as a dynamic trio. Tonight we honor you. We honor you with this testimonial dinner. It's our way of saying thank you over the years for all the guidance, the friendship, and the memories you've given to us.
These 3 gentlemen, because of their lifelong service, and in the one school, I think, they became known in the community and known, of course, to successive classes of graduates. And it ended up as a banquet of about 500 jocks and former jocks, students of East York, most of them graduates, I suppose. And we used the main ballroom over at the Inn on the Park, and the walls were bulging, and we had a grand old time.
Attention for one moment. Have your attention, please. Ladies, honored guests, and gentlemen, may I welcome you all to this most auspicious gathering.
Almost overwhelmed us in terms of the response. People came from all over the continent. We had people from all over Canada and the United States come to that dinner. And as they came in and embraced the coaches that were there, and there were speakers for each of Hager, Hall, and Miller, it was like walking back into a giant locker room, and it was as if you'd never really been away. And you sought out the group that you played with, and you picked up the conversation and found out where everybody was.
Hey, I got the full on one. Harry Hull and Miller. The team of coach Hager, Hull and Miller. A dog head was turned into a thriller. Harry, Mark, and the guys on front, they all do the snoring. Yes, there's a bubble pie. Please excuse us while we cry. Now we'll leave the floor, I will be back
I expected maybe 100 people there. I think it was, what, 600 people? In the end of the park, the biggest ballroom you could be, like everyone's going like, wow, it's crazy.
Mark and Harry were well-established, successful coaches and teachers when I first arrived at East York in 1935. And I deem it a privilege to be associated with these two old guys. I express to all of you my sincere thanks for this most unusual and very flattering plaque. It'll be in a very prominent place in our home, I assure you, probably on the living room mantel, where my wife will be constantly reminded of my sterling quality.
You know, this testimonial dinner is very much like winning a Victoria Cross in the war. That's true. Many merit it, but very few get it. And I consider, along with Bruce and Mert, myself to be very fortunate to have an evening like this. Many other people deserve it more, I believe, but they don't get it. Now, there's a lot of skullduggery in everything, however, even in a smooth-running deal like this. I got one question. How much did Hager pay that photographer to make Miller and myself look 20 years older than he looks?
It was concluded, as is always the case at such parties, that old friends never seem to get together often enough. And as usual, the rather old idea of honoring Messrs. Hager, Hull, and Miller with a small dinner party was bandied about for the umpteenth time in my recollection. However, this time, a small committee was formed, which became a large committee, and the small dinner snowballed into the large gathering we have here tonight.
Well, I guess to start with, I was at East York for a total of 6 years. The average student graduates after 5, but I enjoyed it so much there I stayed an extra year. We had probably 3 of the best gentlemen that could ever coach a bunch of kids. There wasn't one person on that team that didn't respect those 3 fellows.
They were not only gentlemen, but they were extremely easy to get along with and really helped us develop. And I think we all appreciated that as much as anything, that they were tutors and mentors for us as well as coaches.
My name is Joy Lewis, and I was at East York Collegiate from 46 to 50. I used to babysit for Mr. Hager. He was never my teacher, but Harry Hull was, and I was in love with him. He was absolutely the most wonderful man. He had a great sense of humor. He was down to earth. He talked to you just like somebody on the street, you know. He was just wonderful. I know he was married at the time.
I think you go a long way to find a man like Harry Hull that would give his time and effort. In fact, you can say that about all 3 of them. They were very dedicated to the students.
The sports were really important element of your education in those days, and I think that's what those coaches, Hager, Hull, and Miller, probably exemplified.
Well, you felt like you should play like the best you can. I don't know how they do it. I think it was Harry Hull. Harry was tried to put on that he was going to kill you, in a sense, but he never did.
You gotta get in there and fight, yes, sir.
Merc Hager was my teacher, and he was such a great guy. You know, he was so easygoing, and he was always, you know, full of jokes and relaxed, and he was just fun to be with and be in his classes. He was a great guy.
He was just likable. He wasn't bullyish, as I recall, but he got the fellas to move.
Merc Hager was academic, so he did teach phys ed, but he also taught English, and he also taught Latin. So he had an academic kind of air about him and a philosophical air.
Everybody liked Merc Hager because he was a laid-back fella who was, he had a personality as though he could have been a high school kid himself all his life, you know.
Look around you. Don't you wonder how such an odd collection of assorted shapes and sizes and personalities could beat the best the whole metro area had to offer? Take, for example, Ron Brown. He just stood up a few minutes ago. The Human Skyscraper. They tell me he got a job last summer as a junior forest ranger and saved the government the expense of arranging an observation tower.
Hager, Mercury Hager, I guess because he started the same year I did at high school. He was kind of a rookie at being a coach too. And I remember him giving them a halftime talk. He said to them, to try to stir them to greater efforts, as they went in the second half, he said, as was the case of Jonah and the whale, he said, you can't keep a good man down. That was a joke, but I'd listened to enough radio, I thought, holy smokes, gonna stir them on with a stale joke.
There are no longer any showmen left in organized sport. In closing, may I say that those were indeed colorful days. Too often the dominant coloration was black and blue. Generally, it was gold and blue. But, and I know my good friends Harry and Bruce will agree, it was never yellow. And thank you all very much.
East York didn't have indoor plumbing, didn't have paved streets. And we were a little jealous of the city kids who did. And then along comes this high school. I think of the older kids. They were going to learn something more than long and short division and highest common factor, you know. The world of algebra and so on opened up to them, and the world of a second language. Let's face it, economic terms, a lower class economic community, you know. And to me it just seemed that the windows and the blinds had gone up, and the doors had opened, and the light had shone.
We'd like to be there again. We'd like to be there again. I need to give another try.
I happen to think that high school years are the most important years of your life. You know, you're merging into a greater mystery and a bigger world than you ever had before. The first principal I remember was a gentleman by the name of John Short. I don't know whether, I always thought he was a veteran of World War I because he had an unoccupied right sleeve and he had it pinned to his pocket down here on this side. And he had been principal of Secord Grade School over in the far east end of East York. The rumor was that Mr. Short was let go because he wasn't exerting enough discipline in the school. And I think that's true because the next fellow who came on was a tough old guy. He'd been a major in World War I. He'd been hit with a bomb or something. He had a steel plate in his head. And he turned out eventually to be one of the great educators in Canada, I think. Dr. Lewis, Dr. A. Clifford Lewis. But he was a tough guy. And that's the way he ran the school. You didn't fool around with him, baby. I'm telling you, he was tough. Succeeding him, of course, was the great and much loved H.T. Donaldson, Harold T. Donaldson, or Hank as they called him. He was there so long they became a very much loved figure.
I don't think any principal
ever supported the athletic program in his school more enthusiastically, Mr. Harold Donaldson.
The school has always had a relationship and a service relationship to the community. I think too, something that a lot of people don't know is that if you walk into the current entrance rotunda of the school, the list of volunteers in the Second World War are listed on the boards in that rotunda area. And East York Collegiate ranked right near the top of any high school in Ontario for volunteers in the Second World War, and it's sort of, I think, not a surprise because the people that came out of that school were service-oriented and took a great deal of pride in where they'd come from.
It was also interesting, not interesting, but a very sad comment on war that 128 students from East York Collegiate did not come back from the Second World War.
And now, in memory, a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. Be seated, please.
This kid I'm going to tell you about, Mac McIver, who was also lost in the Air Force. He was playing third base, and he brought another kid with him to play shortstop. Red, somebody we call them. But and when we got the playoffs with the city, we got the city final and got beaten, mostly because I was a poor coach, because I didn't know enough. I was 16, and I wasn't aware of how much, get up for the game, and the emotion would play a part in whether you're going to win or lose a game. And we lost the first game, won the second, lost the third. It was 2 out of 3. But anyway, his dad, Mr. McIver, came over, and I can still see him on the third base line just to see one of the games, which we played in the Glade Hill Playground just off the Danforth, east of Woodbine. And he showed up as they did, and he had a kind of a fedora, but with a rolled brim, and he had a 3-piece suit on the tie on a summer evening. I guess just the way he dressed at school in those days to teach. And anyway, then the war came along, and I'd heard that his older son, George, was lost in the Air Force. And the younger boy, get a little emotional, but the younger boy, the kid I knew, Malcolm, he decided he'd better join up, which he did. And the old man, one evening gets another telegram. Second son is gone, Jeez. Yeah. Can I have to tell her that? I'll have to quit this for a while. Mr. McIver, the story as I got it anyway, he, same as ever, he ironed his shirt clean the night before and showed up in his class with his 3-piece suit on the next morning. He was still teaching. So I guess the point of the story is during the war, all the heroes weren't in uniform.
My name is Bev Fardell, Bev Stringer Fardell. I'm an East York Collegiate grad, and I graduated in 1949 or 50. Can I say or 50?
Well, both years were great years, as far as I understand.
They were all great years, all of them. I was a majorette for Leaside first, and then a man by the name of Mr. Tuckwell at East York Collegiate, who was the music director, asked me if I'd like to head up or be a drum majorette, and I said, sure, that'd be fun. So I started, and then I said, I think it would be nice if we had a few more, rather than just one. We had the band. The band was good. The majorettes would lead out, and of course we have to have baton practices. It was really kind of unique, I think, for a high school at that time.
Were the Goliaths real heroes in the community?
Absolutely. Oh, yes, yes. I mean, they put East York on the map. I really do think they did. And, you know, they just gelled so well as a team, and there was such school spirit.
What a lot of people don't know is those legends of that time seldom have ever lost a game, and it was a sports reporter for one of the local newspapers that actually coined the phrase, the Goliaths, and it stuck.
At some point in the late 40s, early 50s, when Harry Hall took his football team to a game, these behemoths rolled out of either a bus or however they got there, came on the football field singing, because there was a lot of singing that went on. Apparently, Harry Hall loved his kids to sing. So these guys would come on the field humming or singing, and it would just scare the bejeebers out of some of these teams. And a coach said to Harry Hall, my God, these guys are like Goliaths, because they were big. And I think that stuck. And Harry Hall then, at that point, determined that it would be the East York Goliaths moving forward. And that's what we are today.
I'm just a passing through. My treasures are laid out somewhere beyond the blue. Come on, get in here.
You see this? That was on our Blazer. I never owned a Blazer to that moment in my life. And there's a picture of it.
Let's see.
Right there.
With it on. There's me.
Oh, look at
the rest
that,
of the
eh?
guys, yes.
Lord, as we come together with old friends and football teammates to celebrate in fellowship, we take this moment to give you thanks for the many blessings and gifts that we've received and continue to be blessed with. In your presence, we remember those days of happy battle and the healthy and strong bodies and minds that enabled us to achieve. Infuse us with your spirit as we continue life's journey. We ask you to bless this food to our use and us to thy service, making us ever mindful of the needs of others.
The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Oh Lord, you know I have no friend like you. If heaven is not my home, then Lord, what will I do? The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world
How rare it is to have alumni go back and care about their high school. Again, I said earlier, university, it happens. People donate and they sort of reflect upon their university years. But high school, it's so rare, and it tells you how lasting and how long-lasting the memories these men and women have of their high school years, and how dedicated they are to their high schools and their community. And quite frankly, I think it's astounding.
Well, they keep telling us that we're unique in developing this program at East York Collegiate. The teachers say this. They know what's going on better than we do, I guess. But the program began in '68 in a small amount. I couldn't tell you without getting in touch with the treasurer how much we've awarded in total, but around 130 scholarships and bursaries. One year I presented them anyway, and he took the time to stand beside me on the platform, and he'd won a scholarship to play soccer down in the States somewhere. And he said, now this award gives me enough, it's going to cover my whole first year with what he got before, plus our $2,500. So that made me feel kind of good.
Let's go to the night in May at the big awards dinner. Can you remember that night, Zach?
I remember that night. I was actually excited and nervous going there because I thought I had a chance to win. I was really hoping, because that was the reason I pretty much went there. I played on soccer and hockey teams as well, but I was really going there to hopefully win the Hager Hall scholarship. And it turned out I won it, and I was really excited. Called everybody, parents and all that.
On behalf of the phys ed department and the Hager Hall Miller Association, we wish him the best of luck. Congratulations to our senior all-around Harry Hall Athlete of the Year recipient, Jordan Ball.
I think that the students that have won these awards, have come to think more, who were these three fellows and what did they do? And they've learned who they are. And I think they have respect for the fact that they existed, and the fact that there's been a group of students who take the time and effort to make this whole thing work.
At East York, we knew so many people that were examples of what the Hager Hall Miller Scholarship was all about. People that were involved in athletics, just genuine good people, leaders amongst their peers, and good marks. So to say why we won it, I'm a little at a loss for words, because I think there was a lot of people that could have been selected.
We are very fortunate to have the support of the Hager Hall Miller Alumni Association. I would ask the association members who are present tonight to stand up and be recognized by EYCI's athletes.
I think 60 years has gone by since I was in high school. We started this, I think, 40 years ago, and it's just snowballed. To think the money that we've raised and the scholarships have gone from, I think, $100 up to better than $2,000. I don't think there's a school in Canada can say that. It's just absolutely astounding that we can and have done that.
Initially, its purpose was to sort of award athletics and reward athletics, but its mandate has broadened to the extent that they are now recognizing academics and outside of phys ed, and in drama and music and in the shops and in design and tech.
We're going to have a little place in the country, and maybe you'll be sitting there beside me every single night.
As Hager Hall Miller began to branch out, that you saw this group in a far different light. You sort of said, oh yeah, if you were the best quarterback on the football team, Hager Hall Miller was going to give you an award or whatever. But that expanded, and that was a wonderful breath of fresh air for all of us in the collegiate. My line is, not every kid can throw a football, but not every kid can sing a song either. So there's a balance there.
That one man, scorned and covered with scars, still strong.